Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cousin. I'm sitting here with Dustin Zimmerman, and today we're going to go over the college football Week 6 recap. Yeah, it was supposed to be really boring. That was not
It did not become boring.
No, so much happened. We will talk about everything and go over all of it, but there is just an insane amount of teams that just kind of screwed themselves. If I had to put it as bluntly as
I
possible,
mean, that's pretty much what it was. Like we talked about last week, there wasn't a lot we were excited for this week. It was a snooze fest, one ranked matchup for the entire week.
That that ranked matchup was is the team you're wearing on your shirt. We'll also talk about those guys and what happened.
Connor Wigman.
Yep.
QB1.
Okay. Well, we did have said something like that in the past, but let me pull up this new. We're going to do a presentation in a different way today. It's going to be a presentation with something that I created because I think it's going to show you a little bit better of how this week kind of turned out. So let me share that. So here you can see this is actually week 6, the week before or last week's AP poll. And this is where all the teams kind of set up and were at. There were a ton of upsets this week, as we have kind of alluded to at this point. And a lot of these teams that are on here did fall a little bit in that rankings.
I'm hurt you left off the A&M 25th tie.
I made sure to leave them off on purpose because they will be in one of the teams did fall out and one of them moved up. So I thought we'd give we thought we'd give UNLV a little bit more credit while they were still in the top 25 before they
running Rebels.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so this was our AP poll last week, and we didn't really expect it to move at all. And
no, I mean a couple here and there. Mm-hmm. Missouri was playing A&M, who was tied for 25th, but outside of that, that was about it.
Right. And also on top of that, we had the fact that there was a ton of buys. So they weren't the teams were just not playing. So we didn't have to really worry about those teams falling out of the rankings or something like that. Well, let's just say it got turned upside on its head, and a lot has changed. So let me pop over to the game recaps. We have seven teams in the top 25 losing. They're all up on the board up there. As you can see, Alabama, the number 1 overall team, loses to Vanderbilt. We will get to that game a little later because we do have to shout out a very, very important player in that game. But, Alabama they came off the emotional high of beating Georgia and doing all the things.
This was the hangover game.
Yeah.
They had the hangover effect.
And they found a way to lose to a pretty solid Vandy team.
Yeah.
Who is basically the Kentucky Vandy, are both the same to me. So I thought it was pretty epic.
I mean, powerhouse Vandy coming in strong, so
I guess. And then you got the Tennessee-Arkansas game, which was Dustin's Superdog of the week. He had Arkansas at plus 14.
Tried to tell y'all not to sleep on the pigs.
And, well, they won outright, so that's a plus 1 in Dustin's win column on his Superdogs. And then we will talk about the Texas A&M Aggies, who do have the number 25 on their on the screen.
I respect that. Thank you. You didn't have the glitch they had last week.
Won by 31. So they kind of just I thought they were going to jump higher. We'll talk about where they jumped, but I really did. I thought they would go all the way up to 12, 11 because a lot of the teams above them did not play this week.
Yeah, I mean, we were going to be held back a little bit because of the Notre Dame loss. There's no way we could have jumped them. So
right, of course.
Just how that goes. Poll inertia, as some people refer to it as. So
we will also talk about the fact that where Alabama has dropped to. I thought they would drop. I thought they would stay in front of Georgia, and they did drop behind Georgia, so I thought that was odd. But
yeah, I mean, we'll get to Georgia a little bit later, but just to add in, they didn't have an overly impressive performance against Auburn either. So very, very weird dynamic between those two.
And then Michigan loses to Washington. Washington's actually a pretty solid team this year. They are, I believe, 1 loss so far this year, so I'm surprised they didn't move into the top 25 after this win. But Michigan has 2 losses now, both to both to Texas and Washington. So we will see if they can hold on to their poll spot.
I did see some jokes about Kalen DeBoer losing.
Yeah.
And then Washington winning their ranked game. And
of course.
There were a lot of Washington fans that were very happy about the additive effect of that.
Right. And then you got the USC Trojans losing to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. The Golden Gophers are a team that very, very solid on defense. Super solid. As you can see, they held Lincoln Riley to 17 points this week.
Yeah.
And they're making a push as a Big Ten team that is got to be watched a little bit. They did last week play against Michigan in a solid win fashion for Michigan, but it was a very close game. Next up, Louisville. Guess what, guys? The ACC is bad at football.
What did I tell you? 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago when I said Louisville's not good. They're fake good.
We've been talking about it. ACC is bad at football. We do have a dark horse, though, coming out of this game, which I think is fun. In the SMU Mustangs,
Fun. Horse.
Yeah,
fun.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Our dark horse is actually red today, but that's okay. They only lost to BYU, who is undefeated by 3 points, 18-15. That is the only game they've lost, and now they have beaten a ranked team, getting into the top 25. They're a team to watch, to say the least, because the ACC is so bad, and we'll talk about some of those teams too in a minute.
I mean, SMU almost created the NIL back in the 80s, got the death penalty for it, and now it's illegal to do, and they're doing what they did. They bought a bunch of players, and they're really good.
Yep. And then you got the UNLV. Sorry, you said it earlier. They're the
Running Rebels.
Running Rebels. Yep. They lose to Kyle McCord in the Syracuse Orange.
Orange.
It's just Orange. I know. Yeah, it's a name. It's a great name. Syracuse, another ACC team, holding on.
Shocker.
Yeah, they're holding on. But Syracuse isn't actually, that talented, I don't think, overall. But their offense is really high powered. As you can see, they put 40-4 up. It was an overtime game. Very fun, exciting game. But at 25, if you lose, you are probably going to fall out of the top 25.
And they did.
So we'll go back to the week 6 view because of the fact that as you look at it, everything is about to change.
Yeah.
And
we touched on 7 top 25 losses.
Yes. So 23 teams moved around in the top 25 this week. The only 2 that did not were Georgia and LSU. If it's green, they moved up. If it's red, they moved down. So we're going to do a quick segment. I'm going to let Dustin actually start it. Oh, actually, no, I get to start it. Huh. We're going to do some rapid fire, just kind of talking about each of these teams. Texas, biggest thing, the Michigan win did not age well.
No.
People want to say that, that we should have gave them more credit because of how Michigan, well, look at that. Michigan loses 2 games, and it did not age well.
Nope.
And they lose to Washington, and Washington has lost to Washington State and some other teams. We don't know what Texas is right now.
No, we have no idea. They're even after that SEC game was Mississippi State, who everyone is now, after Vandy decided they're a powerhouse. Mississippi State's probably the worst team in the conference this year.
One of the bottom 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Next up, Ohio State still hasn't played anybody. They beat Iowa. Hadn't played anybody.
No, we're not counting Iowa as a team they've played.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Georgia, I thought it was interesting that they're ranked over Alabama, considering Alabama beat them, even knowing Alabama loses to Vanderbilt, and that's a worse loss. I mean, if it's a head-to-head, you're still probably supposed to be behind them. So
yeah, I don't understand the 5 through 7 there, but
fair enough.
8 if you want to throw them in. It's all kind of a cluster up there of what they did with the schools.
Absolutely. Miami moved up 2 spots, and they are the worst team in the top 10.
Absolutely.
They're the worst team in possibly the top 20.
I mean, with Missouri losing, Miami has no business being number 6.
It's insane to me that they're up there. They almost lost 2 games in the last 2 weeks. One they did lose.
There was a call on the field made that they lost the game.
And then they had Pac-12 After Dark, and it was a
35-10.
35-10, and
with
then
30 minutes left in the third
quarter, yes. And then I went to bed.
9-3. Oh, I stayed up.
Did you?
I enjoy, me and Pac-12 After Dark.
Well, I wanted to, but we had a wedding all day.
Yes.
And then I had this stream in the morning on Sunday.
You did.
So I was like, I got to go to sleep. And it's 25-point game. Cal won. My super dog is locked in, whatever.
Superdog has.
Superdog absolutely has.
You almost had the win like I had. But.
And then so Miami's the worst team in the top 10 by far. I don't understand why they're up there.
No.
The next team we want to talk about is Ole Miss. They have a tough schedule.
Yes.
It's LSU, OU, Arkansas, and Georgia. Arkansas just beating Tennessee. Georgia's Georgia. LSU is in the top 15. OU is number 18. Like, that's a tough schedule for the next 4 games.
Yeah.
They have a really bad chance of making it into the playoffs. They really needed to beat Kentucky, in my opinion.
That one really hurt because they kind of lose the ability to drop another big game. Such as the Georgia one, or even after this last week, Arkansas.
Yep. And then at 10, Clemson moves up 5 spots, and the prediction looks great.
I mean, at this point, it almost feels like cheating, though, when you look at the rest of the ACC.
Yeah, SMU's good. We'll talk about some other ACC teams in this rankings, but I will tell you what, on this whole board, I think the worst ACC team up there is Miami, and they're by far the highest ranked.
I agree. Yeah.
So next up is Iowa State. They have an awful schedule. They get to play West Virginia, Central Florida, UCF, Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati, Utah, and Kansas State in their next 6 games. I just don't see them winning 7 games. I don't see them winning. I see them winning maybe 5, and that's pushing it.
Did you see UCF the last 2 weeks now?
Yeah,
which
fell apart.
Yeah, their whole team is now falling apart.
Right,
which was a whole nother issue.
But I just think that's a really tough stretch for an Iowa team that Iowa State team that only has played Iowa and beat them barely.
Yeah, it's a lot of middle of the road teams though. Like none of those teams are, the top 10s we're talking about,
right?
Top 15 even. What's their hardest game at this point on that? Kansas State,
Utah, Kansas State, Tech.
Utah if Rising's playing.
I think Utah is still good without him. It's just they're much better with him, right? I think they're still capable without him, though.
So, their schedule's not exactly easy, especially all those back-to-back.
Right.
No easy games in there.
Next up, Texas A&M, who is moved up from 25 to 15. Second highest odds to win the SEC.
To make the championship. Make the SEC championship.
To make the SEC championship. And the easiest schedule on the board, if you ask me. Mississippi State, LSU, South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, and then finally they have a real game in UT.
Yeah.
Now, I know LSU's good. I know that...
Road game. No, we're A&M's hosting. It's at Kyle Field.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the hardest game, though, still on the schedule by far.
Oh, yeah.
LSU's good, of course, and South Carolina's good, but I really think that this A&M team is going to kind of just do their thing.
You know what's fun is we still have the 22nd hardest strength of schedule for the remainder of the year. Well, Iowa State, who you just touched on, is at 48.
Right. But it's also based on the fact that SEC play. So they have one of the easiest SEC schedules left over.
The top 5 on remaining strength of schedule are all SEC teams.
Right.
It's insane.
Next team up, Boise State up 4 spots, and truly the only reason we're going to talk about them is because we just want to shout out Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah,
because we're not going to put him in our prospect spotlight this week, which we could put him in our prospect spotlight every week.
I was about to say.
So he has over 1,000 yards in 5 games, but he also only played in a full 3 of them as full games, and then two first halves only. So he's been crazy good.
He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's a difference maker, man. The next team is Pittsburgh. They started out unranked. And the reason they're on here is because Eli Holstein needs a shout out. He is a Heisman Watch candidate. He is a freshman, which is pretty cool. And I think that this team is better than we're given credit prior to this week. So being 22
like it for sure.
They get to play Clemson. That's Clemson's hardest game left on their schedule. And I think the freshman's going to have a hard time because he is a freshman versus a Dabo Swinney.
Oh, absolutely. Team, well, they are 5-0, which is impressive.
Right. The last team on here is SMU. They started out unranked. They moved into the top 25. They are what we were talking about, the ACC dark horse. Their only loss being to BYU.
Yep.
And they have a super easy schedule. Because they're in the ACC, this is actually an easy schedule, not like an SEC easy schedule.
Right.
Stanford, Duke, Pitt, we just talked about, undefeated, Boston College, Virginia, and then Cal, but Cal at home. Yeah. So Cal has to come all the way over to Texas to play SMU rather than going the other direction.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy schedule.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And then did want to talk about the fact that 5 teams moved up with the bye week. Notre Dame, BYU, Utah, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Illinois all moved up because of the bye week.
I bet LSU fans are ecstatic. They did not have to play in this past week of football.
Oh, absolutely. No one wanted to play this past week
No,
of football.
not with how the upsets went.
Yeah. Also would like to shout out the fact that the AP polls and the committee are very confused.
Yeah, they cannot agree.
They have no idea what they're doing.
No.
I feel like they have two number 11s. If y'all look at the board, there are two teams that are number 11.
Iowa State and Notre Dame.
And then there's three number 18 teams on the board.
Indiana, Oklahoma, and Kansas State.
I get that they were on bye, but you just can't group them together just because they're on bye. Like,
well, it's also just funny because it's a big cumulative. I don't remember how many voters there are, 30 or 40. But
it's
the fact
60 something.
Is it that?
Yeah, let me look because there's first 61.
Oh, it is 61. Okay. But I mean, the fact that they somehow, all of that ended up with 3 number 18s of all teams is like the top 3 where everyone has an idea of where these guys go.
Exactly.
It's at 18. It just is wild that they all got the same points.
They're just confused, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, there's a lot of people who hate that polls even come out this early.
Fair.
Because
no, I agree with that because like we talk about it every time. Who cares if number 1 changes?
Yeah.
Like Alabama going to 1
over
Texas.
That's what we were saying the last few weeks with the
Georgia
switching places.
Georgia and Texas switching.
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Not right now.
And they're not even going to play each other. Like if they do play each other, we're going to know who's better. No. Alabama beats Georgia. Texas has to play Georgia.
No.
I think Georgia's schedule is absolutely atrocious for the year, but that is what it is. 3 teams fell. I love this too, because last week we had two number 25s. 3 teams fell out of the top 25, and only 2 came in because we had an extra one at 25.
There was 2 tied. So won't see that happen for a while, more than likely.
Exactly. USC drops from 11 all the way out because they lost to Michigan. Michigan drops to 24 on their second loss. USC's out of the top 25. Louisville falls out of the top 25 from 22, and UNLV from 25 falls out. The other teams that go in, just love this part of it. 2 ACC teams move into the top 25, Pitt and SMU. What in the world? So we're going to see a lot of change in this week also, which is good.
A week we're actually looking forward to games, and we'll have some pretty big moments and impacts on the polls.
Exactly. So I'm going to stop sharing. One thing I did want to ask you.
Yep.
How many teams do you see in Tier 1 this year?
I will say, as much as we've talked about NIL, transfer portal, and its downfalls, and the whole Sluka situation, and for anyone not following the UCF situation, it's created a lot of parity. There's a lot of like SMU, for instance. Last couple of years been a cupcake. Texas State, for instance, they're competing now.
Right.
As far as the ones I would actually select in Tier 1, though, I got to put Texas up there.
Okay.
Ohio State. The other hard part is we have teams that haven't played anyone still.
Yeah.
Being the top 2, actually. Texas and Ohio State. But probably 1 through 5, and then I'd probably still lump Bama in Tier 1. Just because Milroe. I mean, even though they lost to Vandy, they did still put up 35. It's not like it was 14-7.
Yeah.
But again, with the strength of schedule these teams have faced, it's really hard for me to say, yep, that's Tier 1.
Right.
Here's Tier 2. Here's Tier 3.
So I think I wanted to ask this question because I think, it's, and we talked about this the other day with Cameron, who is on the podcast for other stuff. The fact that this is the perfect year for a playoff extension, because normally you have 3, 4 like teams that need to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Last year you had 6 really, with Florida State, Georgia not making it, and the other 4 making it.
Yeah.
This year there's a bunch.
Yeah.
And I think that's my thing. Like there might be 15 teams that I'm like, okay, they could, if they played the number 1 team this year. Like you're like, okay, I'm not surprised if they win. Like
that was sweet of you to say 15 since we're 15th.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, of course. Not based on ties either.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's also I think we're getting past the whole Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and more of like a color gradient of All right, we're starting to transition from the better teams to the next, but it's definitely not a here's our top, like I said, top 3. We know who it is. On to who else could potentially be behind them.
Right, exactly. There's a lot going on in the NCAA right now, and this week was just so telling of what the ability levels of these teams are, because I really just don't think there's any dominant teams in football right now. And that makes football more fun when there's no one that's just so much better than everybody else. So,
and that's the best part of the transfer portal, is allowing that to happen. So you have guys who are really good and they just can't get a spot because there's better guys in front of them.
Right, exactly. Next up, though, we're going to go to our Super Dog recap. We both hit. We've talked about it a little bit. First team up, I'll let Dustin get this one. I mean, it went just exactly as you thought it would.
Yep. I mean, I expected a higher total. That's all. But I did expect them to be an absolute fight all the way through. And then I think I mentioned it last week, actually, when I said I think Arkansas keeps it really close all game, and then either Tennessee will break away or Arkansas is going to pull off the win.
Right.
And Nico did not look good.
No. 17 of 29.
I was texting a family friend, and they aren't as into college football as we are, and they're like, why do they keep talking about this quarterback? And I'm like, well, he's been really good. But then every play I was like, you're not helping me, Nico.
Yeah.
Trying to tell people how good you are.
He just had his down game. I mean, it was 3-0. It was a very sicko first half, to say the least. I mean, it was 3-0.
We love it.
In the first half, going up to the 19-14 in the second half, which is better, but it's just.
Did you see the final play of the game? Were you watching it?
I wasn't.
So did you see the highlight?
Yeah, I saw a little bit, but like the wedding, we had the wedding.
Yeah, right.
So it was a little hard.
I was watching it. Nico on the last play of the game scrambled. I was thinking, oh, he's about to make a great play. This is gonna be cool. Runs out of bounds. It's like, okay.
Didn't even give his team a chance.
Yeah, and then all the play, he just like laid there, and everyone's running on the field, and it's like, all right, that was anticlimactic. I was expecting a review again or something in the end zone. But
right, absolutely.
Nope, Nico goes out of bounds.
Well, Dustin was absolutely right on his pick with the Tennessee losing the game to Arkansas. My plus 14 to start this game, and as you can see, they thought Tennessee had an 80.6% chance to win it off the rip. So next up, though, we'll talk about mine. Oh, Cal.
You thought about it perfectly. Don't discount yourself.
No, I won't.
They
won't.
35-10.
It's so sad. But I mean, look at that fourth quarter.
21-3.
I mean, okay, Cam Ward, you're still good at football. I'm not going to deny it. You're still very good at football.
Also, fantastic post-game press conference.
I did not get to see that.
Oh, well, he dropped a few words you're not supposed to say on TV.
Yeah, he just had a huge comeback. I guess we'll just give it to him.
I don't think anyone's actually mad at him for
right.
It was fantastic. We're talking on the field, still deep breathing, trying to catch his breath. It was phenomenal.
Hyped. Yeah. Cal did exactly what I was hoping they'd do. Like we said, they came out. They were good. They didn't allow Miami to do anything offensively, and they scored some points.
Yep.
That changed very quickly in the fourth quarter, but it didn't matter because I had the plus 10. I didn't have, them winning money line wise. If I did, I'd been really sad. Yeah. But plus 10, it was a pretty easy bet in my opinion, because you had to fly all the way to California to play this game from Miami.
Yeah.
That's probably the farthest game of the year. I don't think there would be another.
There's not too many big Northeast schools that would be playing.
Yeah, I don't think there would be another one. I'd have to do some research.
Unless Cal's playing in one of the Carolinas, but even then, I don't know how that works as far as the flight pattern.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's actually all the recapping for last week we're going to do. We're going to move on to our game of the weeks for next week, because it's a very exciting slate of games.
We've seen these hyped since what? The memes came out in August?
Yeah, this is the week.
You're missing your buddy's wedding this week.
October 12th. Yeah, exactly.
I think this one and next weekend they're hyping up, but this one. Well, this is the big one. With the upsets, we got to see what happens for next weekend.
Well, what's going to happen is USC is going to beat Penn State probably, because that's just how this works, Penn State has been a team that's just kind of kept games pretty close for the most part. I know that they, of course, blew out bad teams, but like Bowling Green by 7. This game was closer than it's showing.
They broke away in the fourth.
Yeah.
That was close all the way up to the fourth quarter.
Illinois, 14 points. UCLA, who I thought they could have won by 40 against.
They were supposed to win by, I think, 27 or 23.
That was the spread. Like so it's just, they play close games.
It's the James Franklin style, though.
I hate their coach.
Grind it out, and that's it.
I want to make a bold prediction about Penn State, but I can't bring myself to do it because of the fact that James Franklin is their head coach.
Will you make it next weekend?
After this game?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll make it right before the Ohio State game.
Okay.
because I think that that's a good time to do it. But
Sounds like a plan.
USC on the other hand knows how to score. They did get held to 17 points against Minnesota, but they know how to score. So this is going to be one of those games where it can defense versus offense kind of thing.
2:30 in Southern California too, so don't overlook the heat factor here.
From Pennsylvania to USC, which is a long way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is definitely interesting, and ESPN agrees. The projections show that USC is favored. I'm going to definitely take Penn State because they are way more talented top to bottom than USC. There's no way that, like, they just looking at the guys that are on this screen, all three, Woody Marks is pretty good, but Nick Singleton's better, Tyler Warren's better, Drew, they're all better. You know, and they have a second running back in Katron Allen, who is really good, and their defense has some of the best defensive players that are in this draft class. I just think there's way more talent on this Penn State team.
Yeah.
I just hate James Franklin. So, not as much as I hate our own coach, though.
Well, would you take James Franklin over Norvell?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, what if it actually happened this offseason? Do you feel good or not really?
Yes. I feel okay. I feel like we'll have such a better weight program because right now we look weak.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you do.
The next team up, I wanted to put this in there. Colorado. Oh, hello. All right, get off my screen. Thank you. Colorado 4-1 versus the Kansas State Wildcats. I think Kansas State's overrated.
Yeah.
But I also think Colorado's overrated. So this is the perfect chance for us to get one of those, like, who's better, who can kind of sail the ship on this game and kind of beat the overrated team. Both of them have a chance. Kansas State's actually favored in this game. It's a really close game because it is in Colorado.
Yeah.
And we keep putting all the favored teams as the away team.
I'm almost scared of Colorado winning, and ESPN talking about has Prime created a powerhouse now. Has it happened by winning a ranked game against an overrated Kansas State, like you said? Yeah. I'm very terrified of the headlines that will come if they do.
There are going to be so many terrible headlines next week.
So overinflated that it won't even be funny.
Yeah. I would also, it's not like, who do they play after that, I wonder? Because I know that it's not going to be helping them to be going. Let's see. I have Kansas State. There we go. I have the Colorado schedule up. They play Arizona, Cincinnati, Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I hate the Big 12 too. ACC and Big 12, man, they're just gross this year. It's just, I just don't think that Colorado's good, and they're going to be making a push to be playing in one of these bigger bowl games. And it's just gross to me. So we'll be talking about that as the week goes on, or as the year goes on. But yeah, next game is actually a pretty big deal. Dustin has kind of talked about this game a little bit, but I should probably move this game. Let's talk about a different game first, because I just remembered that we actually have changed that game to something else. So let's go ahead and talk about the Ole Miss versus LSU game. This is a big game for LSU because of the fact that this kind of tells them where they're at, I think, more so than anything, as a team, as a program right now. So
who do you think it tells more to? Ole Miss's team or LSU's team?
I think it has to be LSU. Because
Ole Miss still does have that loss to Kentucky. LSU's one losses to USC in an absolute fight.
In week one.
Right.
But
that's what I'm saying.
Since they played USC, they beat South Carolina by 3, which is a good game.
Well, they probably should have lost if Sellers wasn't hurt.
Exactly.
South Carolina probably wins by 2 touchdowns.
And then with Ole Miss, though, if they can find a way to beat Ole Miss, I think that is like almost the point where they're okay with saying, like, we could make the playoffs.
Yeah.
We could be a top 12 team. I know that they're 13, but like, do they have I don't think they have the confidence right now to say that. I think after this game, you'd be like, okay, this is a team that can make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Has an easier schedule than their opponents from here on out, too, which makes it a little more comfortable, I guess.
Who do you think wins this game? You want to do a pick 'em real fast on this one?
Well, let's check the spread because
it's 2.5.
To Ole Miss.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a pick 'em. I say that I'm picking Ole Miss to win this game.
Are you?
Yes. -2.5. I'm going to take the -2.5, and I will take the under 64.5.
Oh, yeah. I agree with the under for sure. Going into Death Valley, 6:30 in this game, and plus, I don't like Lane Kiffin. I don't like Brian Kelly either. So those are two coaches I really don't like.
Right.
But One of them's I don't know. I think it's going to come down to coaching. Honestly,
So
I think give me Nussmeier. I'm taking Nussmeier and the Tigers.
wow, over Dart. All right,
Dart.
All right, that's okay. I'm not against it. Like I said, this is a close game.
I think the 2.5 point spread here is probably the most accurate spread I've seen.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
This game has everything making it to be as close as they're predicting.
And I think ESPN's matchup predictor is kind of based on offensive firepower over because I would expect it to be closer because it's a home game for LSU and stuff like that.
Yeah, we saw Arkansas and Tennessee, which was 80-20. So
right, absolutely. But yeah, so that should be a really fun game. That's a game I want to watch. Like I know Kansas State, Colorado are going to be on. I'm probably not going to watch that game unless it's like something that's just I'm flipping through different games.
I usually try to flip between 2 or 3, thanks to ESPN playing 20 commercials a game. So
absolutely. Now the game that really matters this week.
Big matchup.
Number 2 versus number 3, Oregon and Ohio State. This will move obviously at the top of the rankings, and it'll kind of tell us a lot. I want you to tell me. Actually, let's do a pick 'em on this game.
I was about to say it's 2 and 3. I like that one too. So
okay, which do you think the -3.5 is fair?
I actually do.
Really? Okay. I don't.
What do you think? Well, what do you think the spread should be? First of all, do you think Oregon should be favored?
No.
I mean, the game's in Oregon, so I get it.
I think it should be -7.5 Ohio State.
You think they're more than a touchdown favorite?
I think that is where you should put that line.
Really?
Between 7.5 and making someone decide if they want to try to take the 10 point, basically.
The problem is Oregon hasn't played anyone besides Boise State, from what I understand, or from what I remember. Yeah, they haven't played anyone besides Boise. Neither team has played anyone.
You're right.
I have no idea if either team is that good.
I think
Boise State without Ashton Jeanty is 6-6, by the way. So that's why.
Right.
That game is not even close without Ashton Jeanty hurtling, running 70 yards out of
doing everything,
being Ashton Jeanty,
being 200 yards for that team that week. I think my biggest thing is I just think Ohio State has way too much firepower, and I know that Oregon was actually the one built on the firepower.
Yeah,
I don't think that Oregon this week can get enough points to beat Ohio State. I think that the defense on Ohio State is going to stop them. I love both Jack Sawyer on one side, JT Tuimoloau on the other side. Both of those guys are awesome. Got some good corners. It's just, I think that they're just better. I think they're better. And I think Oregon has been overhyped a little bit, even by myself, because I expected them to come into the season being one of the teams to beat.
Sure.
But I always feel this way about Oregon. They kind of just feel soft. It's a soft team, in my opinion.
Wow.
Not defensively, I need more.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Defensively, I need more. I mean, watching them play Boise was interesting.
Yeah. I'm with you, though. I think Ohio State does win. I think they probably covered too. And as much as I made fun of it, I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
If you were to set it at 7.5, I would still have to consider taking Ohio State to cover that.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me, it's more so just I don't think Oregon is as good as I think that they have good players. I don't think that they have the ability to is it coaching? Maybe I feel like it's coaching. I don't know. It's just they don't feel like they're moving in a trajectory to be able to beat a team like Ohio State, in my opinion. And I think Ohio State is probably the number 1 team in the nation.
I will not say that with their lack of a strength of schedule.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. But I actually have a question because Cam wanted me to make sure I asked this to you.
Yeah.
Cam, calling question actually from the So Cam wants to know if Ohio State wins, or Oregon, will they jump Texas?
Assuming Texas wins.
Yeah, they just win. Say their spread 14.
No. Texas will stay number 1.
Okay.
Because there's no reason for them to. It's not like Texas is playing Kennesaw State. They're playing a top 15 team. So AP voters either have to admit, Oklahoma wasn't actually 14 then, we misranked them. Or they have to, unless Ohio State or Oregon wins by 50, I don't see that happening.
Okay. I just wondered because, and I agree with Cam to ask the question. I actually don't, obviously we don't think it matters that much because it's too early in the year. It doesn't really matter because of that.
Right.
But there are 3 teams in the top 4 that are Big Ten teams in Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State, and they're all going to play each other. I think on top of that, Texas is going to play Georgia, and it won't matter. Like, we're going to get Oklahoma then Georgia. If Texas wins or loses those games, that's like, so I think this is going to right its ship in the next 2 weeks anyways.
Yeah.
But if they do move Ohio State or Oregon above Texas, I think it is just a ploy to like get more talk, kind of like how we're talking about it now.
I think you're going to get some lazy AP voting this upcoming week after this week, because they're now ranked matchups and not unranked.
Right.
Well, that's a huge upset matchups.
Yeah, exactly. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check out some super cool prospects from this last few weeks. I'm going to let Dustin start off with his, because his was in the biggest game of the week, and he was the guy that kind of wrote the ship.
Yeah, so Diego Pavia, quarterback of Vandy, did win SEC Offensive Player of the Week, much deserved. Yeah, he went off. That guy, I talk about Riley Leonard being a gamer, just a guy you're like, if they're close in the game, they can win this game.
Right.
With him at quarterback. That's how Diego Pavia is. 16 for 20, 2 touchdowns, 20 carries for 56 yards, QBR of 95.9 against Bama, which is insane. And then fun fact about him, he was at New Mexico State last year. New Mexico State. And he now has 3 wins. Yeah, New Mexico State. He has 3 wins now where his team entered the game as a 21-point underdog, which is
pretty awesome.
According to ESPN, I think it's out on the byline, is the most since like 1980. So in 44 years now. And that's just assuming they actually track the stat.
Right. Perfectly.
There's a good chance that he probably has the most.
Right. That's pretty cool.
And again, with New Mexico State and Vandy, we're not talking about he's at a team that was rebuilding. He's at teams that have never been built.
Right. Well, they kind of look good. You know, if they
this year, yes.
If they don't lose to Georgia State in week 3, which is just sad because Georgia State's not that good, and it almost looks like they couldn't play any defense.
Yeah.
Which this Vanderbilt team is like the exact opposite of Kentucky. Kentucky's built on defense, can't play offense.
Right.
This Vandy team is built on offense and can't play defense.
Yeah.
It's like the exact opposite, but they're both scary in this SEC.
Yeah, absolutely.
They scared Missouri a little bit, almost double overtime loss, and then
again on the missed kick. We talked about it, but
and then beating Alabama to go up. So,
and shout out to their students for carrying the goalpost 3 miles to the river.
I'm proud.
Yeah, 3 miles from stadium to the river.
I'd be there. I'd be running. You know what I mean? We'd be rotating, and I'd be there.
Oh, yeah,
I'd be so excited.
They had a good 50, 60 of them carrying it.
I mean, when was the last time Vandy beat Alabama?
Well, people call it the win of the decade, win of their lifetime.
20 years?
I think 40. Actually, I did
40 years?
It's like
okay.
40 or 44 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's crazy. It's such a big deal. So yeah, this guy did it for this this town, this school, this state, you know, all the things. So
I'm sure I'm going to jinx it, but he hasn't thrown a pick yet either.
That's always helpful. Yeah, good job, Dustin.
You're welcome, Diego. I shouted you out, but sorry for the 3 picks you're going to throw.
Yeah, right.
Next game.
I wanted to, and of course we shout out Ashton Genty for being the greatest in a college football player.
To be clear, he's always the prospect.
Yeah,
we want the spotlight.
We didn't put the prospect spotlight this week, but he is the prospect spotlight.
He's just on the side, just waiting his turn again.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna do a Texas A&M Aggie because I think it's absolutely deserved this week. Will Lee. Now, I'm sorry. Let me grab the stats. I apologize because I want to make sure. He had so many pass breakups this year. He's had the most pass breakups of any player to this point of 8 on the year. Leads the nation.
Yep.
And against Missouri, so I just got the stats. 43 coverage snaps, 5 times targeted, 0 catches allowed, and 1 pass breakup.
Yeah.
These are good Missouri receivers.
Well, we've talked about them all year. Luther Burden and Theo Weiss.
Yeah. Great receivers, right? He also is number 2 in tackles for the team, and he's a defensive back. 20 solo tackles, 1 interception for the year, 8 pass breakups. Oh, I'm sorry. And then let me go over to his actual profile. This guy right here from St. Louis, Missouri. He is a prospect spotlight because also he can come out this year if he wanted to. That makes him an opportunity, gives him an opportunity to play at the next level. I think he's someone we have to watch. He's 6'3", 190 playing corner. And you just have to kind of, those guys are a little bit of freaks. Like they don't come out that often at that height and that size. So he's been really, really good. And he definitely locked down this Missouri Tigers receiving game. four pass breakups in the week before against Arkansas. I mean, you can tell me about this guy because he's your team, man. You watch him every week. Let's hear about it.
First of all, one of the most basic, simple, but awesome nicknames out there.
Oh, yes. Blanket. I forgot.
Excuse me. Still don't know who sent Theo Weiss that blanket. If you haven't heard, Theo Weiss, when he got to College Station for the A&M game, there was a blanket in there, an A&M blanket, and it was signed by Will Lee. Will Lee came out and said it was definitely not him.
Right.
So we have no idea who put it there. I think Coach Elko actually said he thinks the Missouri coach did it to kind of fire up his team.
That didn't work.
Theo Weiss wore it to the stadium and then did not have a great game.
No.
So fun story there. But yeah, I mean, probably the second best transfer we got, and that's just because Nick Scordon is
different. I do enjoy Nick Scordon.
Defensive end. I'm sure I'll spotlight him later. So, but we'll give Lee his time right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from Kansas State. Really happy we got him. He just looks incredibly confident, and the athleticism is unreal. So,
right, of course.
We'll see him have some big games moving forward.
Yep. Prospect spotlight. Will Lee the third. The blanket. Going over to our super dogs of the week. I'm going to let Dustin grab his first. I will want to preface this though. There are there's not very many good ones this week, which makes it really hard for us to find the ones we like. But Dustin seems to think that this is going to happen, and I kind of disagree.
I just want to preface this by saying this is not I'm an A&M fan and I dislike Texas. This is if any rivalry game is this big of a spread, I'm taking the dog in it.
Right.
Because rivalry games rarely end in actual big point spreads.
Right.
They almost always get into big emotion, momentum swings. It's very rare that one team just takes over. Even when, Texas was up, the Caleb Williams game.
Oh, yeah.
Texas goes up 4 touchdowns. Oklahoma wins the game. Partially because Caleb Williams had one of the greatest games I've ever seen, just of a guy off the bench.
Yeah, for a second half guy.
Right. And then, but yeah, so I mean, with the rivalry happening, I think this one does hinge on Oklahoma's health. If they don't have their receivers, they're going to get smacked. And how well a true freshman does.
Fair enough.
And Hawkins Jr., who's looked really good since he came in for Arnold. But Quinn Ewers is said to be back, though. Sark said he's planning on him starting. This game, like Emery said, we didn't have a lot of great options. But if I see a rivalry game and a big spread, I'm taking the dog in it.
Yeah, I'm more on the Texas is going to cover this. I actually thought this spread, and we talked about this spread should be put at 20.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's not is because of the fact that Texas and Oklahoma are rivals. It makes more sense. And I actually wrote this and I texted this to you. I was like, well, Texas spread's wrong. And you were like, yeah. And I was like, it should be 20. And I think it's going to be a 14-point game.
Right.
And then it came out at 14. And I was like, well, there you go. So they at least also projected the same thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be very close to the spread, in my personal opinion. Not comfortable taking it either way. But like you said, if it is close and it's a rivalry game, you can't go bet on the dog. It's always the way to go. It really is, because they find a way to screw up a good day, right?
Unless there's some weird extenuating circumstance, the star players are suspended or hurt or whatever like that. Rivalry games just are rivalry games. They play like they are.
Yeah, hard all the time.
Yep.
Next up is me. I'm going to be honest. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think that 21.5 is a little bit explicit for a team that's pretty good at football. Alabama's really good. Don't get me wrong. And they can put up points. Let's go down here and check out their scores. 41 against Georgia, 35, 42, 42, 63. South Carolina is also pretty good. They have a really good running back quarterback duo that is tough to stop. We've watched them. They beat Kentucky by 25, holding Kentucky to 6 points. LSU was a close game. They actually should have won that game, which we talked about if Sellers is playing. And then I love taking teams that get blown out the week before. Getting blown out by Ole Miss 27-3 gives me a way more confidence in them than anything else, actually.
You think it hypes up the team
in
terms of that?
Yeah, there is always a bounce back game.
100%.
And this is, I think, going to be a bounce back game. I just think 21.5 is too large. I think Alabama wins this game. I'm not picking Alabama.
We're not going full super dogs like we did last week.
No way. Yeah,
we're thinking there's a win in sight.
Hey, we were close on. You won, and I was so close.
Point off, and
in a fourth quarter,
you should have won.
Yeah. So I definitely think that this is a game where it's probably like a 14-point game.
Yeah,
Alabama wins.
I mean, I agree. It'll be a bounce back game for sure, and I think Alabama wins by 30.
Oh, so you think Alabama gets the bounce back because they lost to Vandy?
I think you're going to see an Alabama team who scores as much as they can and says AP voters really want to drop us below Georgia again.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm going to tell you what.
I also don't know Sellers' injury. He wasn't playing the whole game. They only scored 3 against Ole Miss. I think there's too many question marks.
That's fair. I think he'll be back. I think it'll be okay. He'll be okay.
Yeah. And I think if he plays at full health, you have a good chance.
Yeah, he's the reason they can keep this game close.
Yeah.
But I actually, this game also is, of course, at 11 o'clock, which I always hate 11 o'clock games for teams that we're actually going to want to watch somewhat.
Yeah.
So normally that actually helps the underdog more so than hurts them. It is in Tuscaloosa. I get that. But South Carolina isn't scared to play anybody anywhere. We've seen that. They go and they played their best football at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So I think that could also help them a little bit, which is funny that they're not playing at home and that helps them.
I like Shane Beamer, the South Carolina coach.
Yeah. But yeah, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. That was our recap. We tried a new AP poll style. Hopefully y'all liked it. If not, tell us. It's okay. We will not get our feelings hurt.
Shout out to you for preparing that. That looked very good. Very sharp.
I wanted to do something because I thought this week was so crazy that we couldn't just like talk about it with just the
quickly
AP.
Scroll through like
it's not going to be. It was not the same.
We needed some graphics.
Yeah,
we show.
Well, it's also
the chaos.
Like 23 teams changed.
Yeah.
Well, only 2 out of the whole 25.
Like of that much movement.
I don't know. I'd probably say that all 25 have moved before.
Probably
in the past.
Maybe. Yeah.
Just depending, but the fact that there was so many, I thought it was crazy that there were so many non-ranked teams winning.
Yeah.
And then also, so many buys, so many weird things. It was such a weird week overall.
Being happy to be on buys always means there's something fun happening.
Crazy happening. Yeah, absolutely. So lots of cool stuff happened this week. Hopefully y'all enjoyed our video and we get to see y'all on the next one. Please go like, comment, subscribe on this video and tell us what y'all want to watch. We try to put in some cool segments, of course, and talk about different things. But if y'all have something cool that y'all came up with, we're down to listen. Just let us know.
Absolutely. Thank y'all very much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all having a good one.